I found out about my father's wedding on Instagram. Not from a phone call. Not from a handwritten invitation slipped into my mailbox with careful handwriting and a wax seal. Not even from an awkward, guilt-laden text message sent at 2 a.m. when courage finds cowards in the dark. No. I found out because my cousin Rachel posted a picture of herself in a lavender bridesmaid dress, holding a champagne flute, with the caption, "So excited to celebrate Uncle David's big day. Rings sparkles." I stared at that photo for 20 minutes, sitting in my car outside the grocery store, ice cream melting in the trunk, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone twice. The world felt tilted, like someone had shifted the axis of the earth just slightly to the left, and I was the only one who noticed. My father was getting married. And I wasn't invited. I need you to understand something about my relationship with my dad. It wasn't perfect, whose is, but it was ours. After Mom died when I was 16, it was just the two of us in that big, echo-filled house in suburban Connecticut. He taught me how to drive in his old Volvo, letting me practice parallel parking in empty church parking lots on Sunday afternoons. He sat through every single one of my terrible high school theater productions, even the one where I played a tree and forgot my only line. When I got accepted to college, he cried. Real tears, the kind that made his whole face red and blotchy. He told me Mom would have been so proud, and then we ordered Chinese food and watched reruns of The West Wing until we both fell asleep on the couch. That's who we were. That's who I thought we were. He met Patricia 3 years ago at a gallery opening in Manhattan. He'd started painting after he retired, watercolors mostly, soft landscapes that looked like they were dissolving into mist. Patricia was an art consultant, 10 years younger than him, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. I tried to like her. I really did. I invited them both to dinner at my apartment in Brooklyn. I asked about her work, her hobbies, her family. I laughed at her jokes even when they weren't funny. I complimented her taste in wine. But there was something about the way she looked at me, like I was a stain on expensive upholstery that she was calculating how to remove. The first time I felt it, really felt it, was at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. I'd spent the entire day cooking Mom's recipes, the sweet potato casserole with the pecan topping, the cranberry sauce with orange zest, the pumpkin pie with the lattice crust that took me 3 hours to perfect. Dad and Patricia arrived late, and she walked into my apartment holding a store-bought pie from Whole Foods. "Oh, you cooked," she said, her voice dripping with something I couldn't quite name. "How ambitious." Dad laughed. Actually laughed. Like it was charming. I felt something crack inside me that day, something small but important, like the first fracture in a frozen lake. After that, the invitations started to dwindle. Sunday brunches became "We're actually pretty busy this weekend." Birthday calls came later and later in the day. When I got promoted at work, I called Dad immediately, breathless with excitement, and he said, "That's great, honey," in the same tone he'd used to acknowledge that it was raining outside. Patricia was always there in the background of our phone calls. I could hear her voice, soft and persistent, like water eroding stone. But I never thought he'd get married without telling me. I sat in that parking lot for another 10 minutes after seeing Rachel's post, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a small courthouse thing, just the two of them, and Rachel had gotten confused. Maybe. My phone rang. It was Rachel. "Oh my God, Emma, I'm so sorry," she said before I could even say hello. "I didn't realize, I thought you knew. I thought you were just busy or something. I would never have posted if I." "When is it?" My voice sounded strange, flat and distant, like it was coming from someone else's body. "Tomorrow. At that vineyard upstate, the one with the stone chapel." "Emma, I'm so sorry. This is so messed up." I hung up without saying goodbye. I drove home on autopilot, my mind spinning through possibilities, excuses, explanations that could make this make sense. Maybe the invitation got lost in the mail. Maybe he thought I was traveling. Maybe he was planning to surprise me. But deep down, in the part of myself I usually tried to ignore, I knew the truth. I wasn't invited because Patricia didn't want me there. And my father had chosen her. I spent that night on my couch, wrapped in Mom's old quilt, staring at my phone. I wrote 17 different text messages to my father and deleted every single one. Each draft sounded either too angry or too desperate, too accusatory or too pathetic. Dad, I saw Rachel's post. I hope you're happy. Delete. Why didn't you tell me? What did I do? Delete. I'm your daughter. Delete. Finally, at 2:47 a.m., I sent, "Congratulations on your wedding. I love you." He responded 6 hours later, "Thank you, sweetheart. Love you too." That was it. No explanation. No apology. No acknowledgement of the enormous, gaping wound he just carved into my chest. I called in sick to work the next day. I couldn't face the concerned questions from my coworkers, the sympathetic head tilts, the offers of comfort that would make me cry in the office bathroom. Instead, I stayed in my apartment, watching the minutes tick by, imagining what was happening at that vineyard upstate. Patricia would be wearing white, of course. Something elegant and understated that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Dad would be in his navy suit, the one Mom helped him pick out 20 years ago. Rachel would be there in her lavender dress, along with my Aunt Susan and Uncle Tom, and probably a dozen of Patricia's friends and family members. They would eat catered food and drink expensive wine and toast to the happy couple. Someone would probably make a speech about new beginnings and second chances and love finding you when you least expect it. And I would be here, alone, in my apartment, eating cereal for dinner and wondering how I became so forgettable to the one person who was supposed to love me unconditionally. That's when something shifted inside me. The hurt started to harden, crystallizing into something sharper, something more useful. I wasn't going to beg for my father's attention. I wasn't going to send desperate messages asking why I wasn't good enough to witness his happiness. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. If he wanted to erase me from his life, fine. But I was going to make sure he understood exactly what he was erasing. I opened my laptop and started writing. I wrote about Mom. About how she made pancakes every Sunday morning and always burned the first one, which she'd eat herself so we wouldn't have to. About how she sang off-key in the car and knew every word to every Beatles song ever written. About how she held my hand during thunderstorms even when I was too old to be scared, because maybe she was the one who needed holding. I wrote about Dad. About the good parts, the before Patricia parts. About how he taught me to ride a bike in the driveway, running alongside me until his knees hurt. About how he ugly cried at my high school graduation and pretended he just had allergies. About how he kept Mom's garden alive for 3 years after she died, watering her roses every evening like it was a sacred ritual. I wrote about us. About the family we used to be, the inside jokes and the traditions and the way we fit together like puzzle pieces that were cut from the same cardboard. And then I wrote about what it felt like to lose all of that. To watch it dissolve slowly, like watercoloring rain, until there was nothing left but a pale stain where something beautiful used to be. I wrote for 6 hours straight, until my fingers cramped and my vision blurred. When I finished, I had a 15-page letter that was part memoir, part eulogy, part love letter to the father I used to know. I printed it out, folded it carefully, and put it in an envelope. But I didn't mail it. Not yet. Because I realized something as I was writing, this wasn't about him anymore. This was about me. About the daughter I used to be, the one who believed that love was unconditional and family was forever and parents were supposed to protect you from pain, not cause it. That girl was gone. And maybe that was okay. Maybe I didn't need my father to acknowledge what he'd done. Maybe I didn't need an apology or an explanation or an invitation to his next life event. Maybe I just needed to say goodbye to the version of myself that still believed he was coming back. 3 days after the wedding, I got a package in the mail. Inside was a slice of wedding cake in a small plastic container and a note in Patricia's handwriting, "Wish you could have been there." The exclamation point felt like a slap. I threw the cake in the trash and stared at the note for a long time. The casualness of it, the false cheer, the complete absence of self-awareness, it was almost impressive. That's when I decided to mail the letter after all. Not to my father's house, where Patricia would probably intercept it, but to his P.O. box, the one he'd kept for years for his art supplies and gallery correspondence. The one only he checked. I mailed it that afternoon, along with a small box containing something I'd been holding onto, Mom's wedding ring. She'd left it to me in her will, along with a note that said, "For when you're ready." I'd been wearing it on a chain around my neck for almost 10 years, a talisman against loneliness, a reminder that I came from love even when love felt far away. But I didn't need it anymore. And I wanted Dad to remember, really remember, what he'd had before Patricia. What he'd chosen to let go. I included a note with the ring, just 3 lines. "This belonged to Mom. She wanted me to have it, but I think you need it more. Remember what real love looks like, Dad. Remember who you used to be." I didn't hear from him for 2 weeks. Life went on in that strange, muted way it does after something breaks. I went to work, met friends for drinks, went to yoga class, pretended everything was fine. I became an expert at deflecting questions about my family, changing the subject so smoothly that people barely noticed. But at night, alone in my apartment, I let myself feel everything, the anger, the grief, the bewildering sense of abandonment that came in waves, unexpected and overwhelming. I mourned my father like he died, because in a way, he had. The man I knew, the one who taught me constellations and let me paint his toenails when I was 7 and told me I could be anything I wanted to be, that man was gone. Then, on a Tuesday evening in early November, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw my father standing in the hallway, holding a bouquet of flowers that looked like he'd bought them from a bodega on the corner. My heart did something complicated, a leap and a lurch, hope and dread tangled together. I opened the door. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer. Smaller somehow, like he'd been diminished by something I couldn't see. "Hi, Emma," he said quietly. "Hi." We stood there for a moment, neither of us knowing what to do. Finally, he held out the flowers. "These are for you. They're not very good. I don't know. I should have done a lot of things differently." I took the flowers but didn't invite him in. "Why are you here?" "I got your letter. And the ring." His voice cracked. "Emma, I need you to know. You got married without telling me." The words came out harder than I intended, sharp and cutting. "You let your wife exclude me from one of the most important days of your life, and you said nothing. You did nothing." "I know." He closed his eyes. "I know, and I don't have an excuse." Patricia said, she thought. I don't care what Patricia thought. I was surprised by how steady my voice was, how calm I felt. "This isn't about her, Dad. This is about you. You chose her feelings over mine. You let me find out on social media that my father was getting married. Do you have any idea what that felt like?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I was a coward. I knew it was wrong, but I kept telling myself it would be easier this way, less complicated, and Patricia kept saying that you were busy with your own life and wouldn't want to come anyway, and God, Emma, I failed you. I failed your mother. I failed myself. I wanted to slam the door in his face. I wanted to scream at him, to list every way he'd hurt me, to make him feel a fraction of the pain I'd been carrying. But I also wanted to hug him. To forgive him. To go back to the way things were before Patricia, before the distance, before everything got so complicated. I can't do this right now, I said instead. I understand. But please, just listen for 1 minute. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. This is for you. Don't open it now. Open it when you're ready. I took the envelope, feeling its weight in my hands. I love you, Emma. I never stopped loving you. I lost my way. And I'm so sorry. He turned to leave, then stopped. Your mother would be ashamed of me. Hell, I'm ashamed of me. But I'm going to fix this. I don't know how yet, but I will. He walked away before I could respond, his shoulders hunched, his footsteps slow and heavy. I closed the door and stood there for a long time, holding the envelope and the flowers, feeling something in my chest start to unfurl, not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. That night, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten in Dad's careful script, along with a photograph I'd never seen before. The photo showed Mom and Dad on their wedding day, young and radiant, looking at each other like they were the only two people in the world. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, this is what love looks like. Don't ever settle for less. The letter was 12 pages long. In it, Dad told me everything. How he'd been terrified after Mom died, how the house felt too big and too quiet and he didn't know how to be a father and a mother and a whole person all at once. How he'd leaned on me too much, asked me to be more grown-up than a teenager should have to be, and then felt guilty about it for years. How Patricia had seemed like a life raft when he met her, someone who could take care of him for a change, who didn't need him to be strong or brave or anything other than present. How she'd slowly convinced him that I didn't need him anymore, that I was thriving on my own, that calling too often or visiting too much would be clingy and pathetic. How he'd believed her because it was easier than facing his own fear that I might not want him in my life anymore. I see now that I was wrong about everything, he wrote. Patricia wasn't a life raft. She was an anchor, pulling me away from the things that actually mattered. And I let her, because I was weak and scared and desperate not to be alone. But I was already alone, Emma. Because I pushed away the one person who actually loved me unconditionally. You. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. Maybe not ever. But I need you to know that I'm leaving Patricia. Not because I think it will fix us, but because I finally understand that I can't build a life on the foundation of hurting my daughter. I'm moving back to the old house. Mom's house. I'm going to replant her garden and fix that broken step on the front porch, and maybe, if you're willing, I'd like to cook you dinner sometime. I'll probably burn something. I never was any good in the kitchen without your mother, but I'd like to try. I love you, Emma. I'm sorry I forgot how to show it. Love, Dad. I read the letter 3 times, crying through all of them. And here's the thing about forgiveness, it's not a switch you flip or a decision you make in a single moment. It's a process, slow and messy and nonlinear, full of steps forward and backward and sideways. I wasn't ready to forgive him that night. Or the next day. Or the week after that. But 2 months later, on a cold January evening, I drove to Connecticut. The house looked exactly the same, the blue shutters, the oak tree in the front yard, the porch swing where Mom used to read in the summer. Dad answered the door wearing an apron covered in flour, his hair sticking up in every direction. "I'm making lasagna," he said sheepishly. "Well, attempting to. The noodles might be a little crunchy." "Need help?" "Desperately." We cooked together in Mom's kitchen, bumping into each other like we used to, laughing when the sauce splattered on the ceiling, arguing about how much garlic was too much garlic. It wasn't perfect. There were long silences, moments of awkwardness, topics we carefully avoided. I still felt angry sometimes, hurt bubbling up unexpectedly when I thought about the wedding I'd missed, the months of silence, the way he'd let someone else decide my worth. But there were other moments too. When he asked about my work and actually listened to the answer. When he showed me his new paintings, watercolors of places we'd been together, places that held our history. When he pulled out a box of Mom's things he'd been saving for me, her recipe cards, her favorite scarf, a journal full of notes she'd written about me as a baby. "I should have given these to you years ago," he said. "I was holding on to them for myself, being selfish. But they're yours. They were always yours." We ate the lasagna even though it was definitely too crunchy, and we talked about Mom, really talked about her, for the first time in years. We laughed about her terrible sense of direction and her habit of adopting every stray cat in the neighborhood and the way she sang opera while cleaning the bathroom. And for the first time since I'd seen Rachel's Instagram post, I felt something other than anger or hurt or grief. I felt hope. Not hope that everything would go back to the way it was, I knew better than that now. But hope that we could build something new. Something different. Something honest. Before I left that night, Dad walked me to my car. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know I don't deserve." "Dad." I put my hand on his arm. "Stop. Just stop apologizing for a minute." He nodded, his eyes watery. "I'm not there yet," I said carefully. "I'm not ready to just forget everything that happened. But I'm here. And that's a start." "It's more than a start," he said. "It's everything." I drove home with the heat blasting and Mom's scarf wrapped around my neck, thinking about beginnings and endings and all the complicated spaces in between. My father got married, and I wasn't invited. That's true. That happened. That hurt like hell. But here's what else is true. I learned that love isn't about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about showing up even when it's hard. It's about saying I'm sorry and meaning it. It's about choosing, every single day, to be brave enough to stay. Patricia is no longer in our lives. The divorce was finalized quietly, without drama, just a signature on paper and a closed chapter. Dad says he's learning to be alone, to be comfortable in his own skin without needing someone else to validate his existence. We have dinner once a month now. Sometimes at his house, sometimes at mine. We're rebuilding, brick by careful brick, foundation by fragile foundation. It's not the relationship we had before. But maybe that's okay. Maybe some things need to break before they can be rebuilt into something stronger. I still have the letter he wrote me. I keep it in a drawer next to Mom's wedding ring, which he gave back to me the second time I visited. "This is yours," he said firmly. "It was always meant to be yours." I don't know what I was thinking. I wear it now, on my right hand, a reminder of where I came from and what I survived and the kind of love I deserve, the kind that doesn't disappear when things get complicated, the kind that doesn't make excuses or exclude or abandon. The kind that stays. So yes, my father had a wedding, and I wasn't invited. His wife, his ex-wife now, didn't want me there, and he chose her feelings over mine. But I chose myself. I chose my own worth. I chose to grieve what was lost and then slowly, carefully, build something new from the rubble. And in the end, that choice saved us both.